All right, sir. Did you observe any shad while you were there?
Yes.
Please slowly and carefully explain to Judge Sauls what you saw with respect to shad on November 29 at the Dade County Canvassing Board headquarters.
I saw at least 4 or 5 instances where one of the hand tabulation tables, before a new envelope was opened, the area in front of the hand tabulators was completely clear of chads. Then after having counted out the various chads, undervote ballots, they would reseal it, and then you would see 1 or 2, sometimes 3 or 4 chad that had.
Let's go to David Cardwell in Tallahassee. David, 3 witnesses who were Republican observers at the Miami-Dade recount of votes. What's at stake here for both sides?
Well, the Bush side is trying to do something that may have initially appear inconsistent. They're trying, on one hand, to show that the Dade County Canvassing Board did not abuse its discretion when they ended up certifying returns, but at the same time, they want to show that there were enough mistakes and enough problems that the accuracy of the ballots that have been sent here to Tallahassee from Miami-Dade cannot be relied upon. The present witness, Mr. Lampkin, is testifying to the fact that there is a discrepancy in the number of ballots that were reported by the canvassing board as being undervotes and the number of ballots which were separated by machine as being undervotes and placed in envelopes that have now been sent here to Tallahassee. So they're trying to figure out the discrepancy, which again also goes to whether or not those ballots can really be relied upon. So it's kind of cutting both ways, but right now they're trying to show that there is a discrepancy in the number of undervotes.
In this court proceeding, is anything bigger for each side than Miami-Dade?
Right now, that appears to be the battleground. It's a big county. There are a lot of ballots at stake. I'd say that county has moved to the front line, and right now, Palm Beach County's kind of stepped back a little bit.
Okay, David, thank you very much. Let's go back to the courtroom.
Okay.
You made it clear.
Your Honor, please.
Sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Lampkin. My name is Dino Kitchen. I'm one of the lawyers for the Vice President and Senator Lieberman. You were a Republican observer, and where did you tell us you were from?
I kind of have a bizarre life. You know, half my stuff is still in Austin. Half of it's in a storage locker in Virginia, and I'm actually kind of bunking with friends until this matter is over and I can get my life settled again.
Are you a lawyer, sir?
Yes, sir.
And you were a Republican observer? That was the role you were?
Yes.
Now, sir, let me just get some basic things here. Are you suggesting that Supervisor Leahy's office did anything to compromise the integrity of the undervotes as to destroy the ability of an impartial observer to determine the voter's intent?
It's a complex question. I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just providing the court with my recollection of my observations over a 2-day period.
So you're not trying to tell us that you can't rely on these ballots because of the way they were handled. You're not telling us that, are you?
I can only say that I'm providing the judge and the court with my observations.
Do you have any reason to believe that Supervisor Leahy's office is incapable of separating the undervotes from the other votes?
I believe the witness is trying to just testify as to what he saw and not whether he's got this surmise or a reason or this, that, or the other.
Okay.
If we can.
Would you agree with us that based on what you saw, in order to segregate or separate the undervotes from the other votes, they have to be handled?
Can you repeat that again?
Yes, sir. In order to separate what is determined to be an undervote from the other votes, do personnel of the office have to handle them?
Yes, but I do have a caveat to that.
Well, do they have to handle them or not?
Yes, but I do have a caveat to that. An explanation. Based on my observation, and I'm certainly no expert in this, I could suggest a better way that would have allowed less handling during the course of the day.
Okay, sir. Fine. In order to count the undervotes, do personnel of Mr. Leahy's office have to handle them?
Yes, with the same caveat.
In order to package them up when a judge in Tallahassee says ship them to Tallahassee, do personnel of Mr. Leahy's office have to handle them?
I would disagree with that.
They don't.
No.
They don't have to be handled.
Because, can I, or Judge?
You disagree? Fine.
Because what they did is they added an extra step at that point, because I believe there would have been a way to transport the entire previously secured ballot box to Tallahassee, as opposed to what they did, which was to I guess another time, remove the trays and put them into smaller boxes. So I would disagree with you on that.
So you say you have a better way to pack them up and transport them than they have?
Your Honor, let the record reflect, please, that Dade County's transporting of those ballots, both the first and the second times, were pursuant to orders of this court, and at the second time we were told not to touch them further, but pack them up, and that it was not a question of a better way or any other way, but it was pursuant to court order, and we had to do it the most expeditious way.
All right, let the record so reflect.
Well, sir, Mr. Lampkin, can you, sir, for the court and for all of us, tell us the procedure of the Miami-Dade County Supervisor's Office for identifying undervote ballots?
Again, and I came in midstream in some of the identification, but as I observed it on the 29th, in short, here's how it proceeded. They would remove a particular precinct. They would, if the undervote had been previously segregated, they would take that segregated vote in its envelope, give it to one of the two-man or two-women teams, they were actually, who would then open, count. There were circumstances where if the overvote was higher after the hand tabulators counted than the previously recorded on Exhibit 62, either David or his deputy Ivy would come and then count them again, make some examination for what they termed to be clear votes. Then they would make a final call on the number, reseal them. There were other ballots that had not already gone through the tabulation machines for segregation that on the day of the 29th were actually the entire precinct was run through for the first time, excuse me, I should say for the first time that day. There was a manual segregation by one of the workers. That envelope was then transferred to the hand tabulators, who would then count it again, and the secondary process would then commence if there was a discrepancy, an upward discrepancy on the hand tabulation. Mr. Leahy or Ivy Corman would come over, count them again. Then there was a third attempt to look for undervotes based on his compilation of information from Defendant's Exhibit 63. Mr. Leahy had determined that any precinct which had a lower undercount record from the hand tabulation than the one that was determined on the canvassing report of the 8th, those, he began the process, I should say, and I believe he only got through about 50 or 75, 100 of those were put back through the machine, and that's when we received word that either through a conference call or some other means, Judge Sauls had ordered that all activity regarding the ballot should stop.
You don't question in any way the honesty and integrity of the office, do you, sir?
No, I mean, they're very good people.
Based on what you observed, were hardworking public servants doing their best to count the votes as they were supposed to?
We've been through this. I object to it.
We have.
Well, if we have, Judge, would you tell me what his answer was?
I think he said several times that he thought that they were fine people down there. He's just testifying as to what he says he saw them doing.
Would you, sir, accept Supervisor Leahy's description of the method in which you determine the undervote and identify undervote ballots in his office as the way it's done now?
I object to this, Your Honor. It's calling for speculation. None of us know what David Leahy's going to say. I guess he's going to testify and cross-examine.
Mr. Witness, do you know what Mr. Leahy's system was?
Based from, as I explained, Your Honor, through my observation of what was going on.
All right, then you may inquire.
Can you, Mr. Lampkin, identify for me or define for me what an undervote is in that office that we're talking about? What they used to define it? What was the description?
As I observed it based through the course of the day, they were identifying undervotes where there was no clear vote. Again, that's, I believe, Mr. Leahy's term, in the presidential ballot area. That's how they were defining it to be an undervote.
Just a moment, please.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Lampkin.
No further questions. Oh, I'm sorry.
Your Honor, Lee Krafchick on behalf of Miami-Dade County. Can I ask this witness just a couple of questions?
You may, sir. If you have leave of Mr. Greenberg.
Okay. I would do nothing without Mr. Greenberg.
All right, proceed.
Mr. Lampkin, you understand where the number of undervotes comes from in the first place, don't you?
It all depends what number. There are so many numbers, I just don't
Well, let me
know
see
which
if I
numbers
can
there are.
explain it to you, all right? You start with the precinct, right?
Excuse me, Your Honor. I judge the counsel testifying. He can ask questions, but I don't think he can explain it to the witness.
We'll do it through questions, all right, sir?
All right, sir.
Let me start with the precinct, right? Okay? We start with the precinct and we come up with a number of ballots for the precinct, right? Can you do that?
Are these incremental questions or?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It seems that the problem that we have is that there is a discrepancy between two documents. And now apparently counsel is going to try to take this guy, who only knows what he observed, and try to explain the discrepancy in Mr. Leahy's office. If they want to put on a witness to describe how it happened, they should do it, but not put us through this, Your Honor.
We're just going to make sure his observations are consistent with what actually happened, that's
All right,
all.
well, let's don't testify or bring in other extraneous matters. Let's confine ourselves to
Just
the
do it very quickly.
cross-examination.
You start with the
Direct.
You start with a precinct and you find out how many ballots there are. That's something you can count, right?
I'm not understanding where you're going with this.
Do you know that when you have a set of ballots, you have a number that reflects the number of presidential votes?
I believe that to be true, but it's unclear.
There's also some overvotes, correct?
Again, I believe that to be true, but I'm not sure what.
If you add together the presidential votes and the overvotes, and then subtract them from the number of ballots for the precinct, that ends up as your undervote. Do you understand that? You don't know.
I don't.
All right, let me ask you this, sir. Let me ask you this, sir. When you were observing, was it your observation that what Mr. Leahy was trying to do was to make sure that the undervote that he originally had from each of the precincts actually matched up to the number of ballots that were pulled out by the machine?
Frankly, I'm not quite sure what he's trying to do because they, as I recall, and I think, actually these documents don't reflect it, there are precincts where in finality, and I'll put that quotes around it, the number of hand-tabulated undervotes exceeds the number that was ascertained on November 8th. So under that premise, and I, during the course of the day, that's why I objected to what was going on, you can't answer your question.
So what Mr. Leahy was trying to do was to reconcile the number of undervotes with the number of ballots he pulled out.
Sustain the objection. I think the witness started off by saying he thought what they were trying to ascertain. So that's all the witness can testify to. Now, if there's somebody, other witnesses going to come in and explain that, then that will certainly contradict what this witness has said or explain it.
And just one last question, sir.
Yes,
Is there
sir.
anything about your observations that's inconsistent with the process of trying to match up the undervote with the number of cards?
Yes.
What was inconsistent about it?
I thought running the ballots through the machine